do want to try to bring our Cole Sullivan back in because I think he has been really the one who's seen it all unfold up close and personal tonight. So Cole, we can see you again live there at the foot of the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge. As I was saying, I believe that public area closes at 11 p.m. We know we've heard multiple rounds of police telling the protesters this is an unlawful assembly. We know that they've been given a lot of warnings, but I also feel like the energy is not quite as tense as it was earlier. So I'm kind of curious what might happen at the top of the hour. I'm sure you don't know because this is a lot of just sort of wait and see. But I'm curious to know if people are just going to disperse on their own or if police are going to try to take any more people into custody. And I know you can't see it, but I will tell you from our chopper vantage point, it looks like there's just a handful of people left in that park.
That was very helpful when you said that, Teresa, because it is tough from our vantage point to see exactly what's unfolding there. I think Matt Howerton is right that folks are slowly trickling out. And again, we don't know what is going to happen when that public park closes at 11 o'clock today, or if indeed that's what Dallas police are waiting for at this point. But you can see they're still holding that line there. One possibility that I'm curious of that could be reality is they know as they move forward, the protests gain energy, if you will, and the protesters become louder and chant louder and are less likely to leave. And potentially, if they just hold this line, maybe people will get bored and go home on their own. Again, we don't know that's the case. We don't know that that's the strategy at this point for Dallas police. But what I can tell you is we saw, probably a half a dozen officers kind of trickle back away from this area. We saw, as you pointed out live on the helicopter shot, them bringing a water cooler to the Dallas police, bringing a water cooler to this area, indicating that they're not planning to leave anytime soon. They're keeping the officers hydrated here, but this is all kind of staying stationary at this point. A few minutes ago, we heard some chants and some cheering from some of the protesters, but that has kind of died down at this point. There's one moment, I don't know if you can see up on this hill, where this is where the speakers were earlier today. It appears like protesters and police are right up in front of each other, facing off at that point on this hill here. Seeing the flags, officers up on the hill and protesters up on the hill too. I would imagine we cannot hear from here, but there is likely some words being thrown around at that point, but we haven't seen any objects being thrown. That's one thing that would potentially escalate the situation for DPD to move in at this point. This is, as you were talking about earlier, the site of where we saw some protests in 2020 here on the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge almost 5 years ago to the day. That was June 1st of 2020, where more than 600 people were arrested or detained by Dallas police on this bridge. And it's really interesting because Dallas police, Teresa, have actually re-examined some of their tactics and policies since that time. They actually just briefed the Community Police Oversight Board here in Dallas last month, the middle of last month, on what has changed in how they handle protests like this. Among those changes, the warnings that we were talking about have to be clear and audible. We heard them giving them in Spanish as well to this protest too. They also have changed how they use what they call less than lethal rounds, in this case rubber bullets. One of the big concerns that was raised in lawsuits that were filed and charges that were brought against officers in the 2020 protests were for injuries caused by rubber bullets. Now DPD policy states that those rubber bullets have to be fired directly at one person, not into a crowd, as officers are trying to disperse protests. There are other changes they have made too in the wake of those 2020 protests. And they say that what happened on this very bridge that we're sitting next to 5 years ago to the week is what informed those tactics, changes, and policy as well that we've seen unfold here tonight, Teresa. So that's just some additional context of what has happened to lead to all of this. But still, police officers here, some moving away at this point. You probably can't really see them, but some kind of in the silhouette there walking away from this line. Just the handful I was talking about earlier, most still here. And we imagine they will stay that way as the protesters stay here. So will they, trying to make sure that this doesn't continue to escalate again and go across the bridge, which is kind of the key line that they have been working to hold, and make sure that this doesn't block any traffic here in this area too. Although I will say, since rush hour, kind of the 6, 7, 8 o'clock hours, I guess just post rush hour, when we had a lot of vehicles coming by, some trucks, some cars honking in support of these protests, that stopped. There are not people out in these neighborhoods right now. Just, it's that time of night. Folks are home. It's a Monday night. People aren't out late in Trinity Groves here, going to restaurants or things like that might be happening there. It is DPD officers here that you have seen, that line on the bridge and the line down Beckley that we had. You've seen that from the helicopter shot, and then the remaining protesters here in this park as well. And Teresa, I know you've been doing this live coverage for hours, as I have too. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the situation that we have unfolding here, or kind of on pause here at this moment, or what we've seen through the evening as well.
Yeah, well, I do want you to just kind of stand by, Cole, because it's now 10:58, almost 10:59, and I was saying earlier that I know at 11 o'clock is when that pedestrian area officially closes, but I don't anticipate that police are going to make any sort of bold moves just at the top of the hour, because like you said, it really kind of feels like they just are sort of standing there to stand the ground and make sure that the protesters don't try to get back onto the bridge. And again, as I said, I know you don't have the vantage point I do. You cannot see our chopper shot from where you are. A couple dozen, maybe slightly more, is all we're looking at. I know also you could see on that sort of raised area, the hill, the people who were waving the flag and very close to police officers. It does look like there's several feet in between them, but I will tell you, those people are just standing their ground, just as the police officers are, waving their flags and not going anywhere. But I'm relieved to know that the energy you feel there is that tensions have settled a bit, and that's good news.